Hi guys, welcome back to Dice Down Gaming. Today, I'm going to explain the difference between Focus and Fury. I'm going to give a little brief overview of the lore, and then I'm going to mechanically explain the difference between the two. A massive thank you to anyone who's subscribed so far. My next personal goal is 500, but at 250, I'm going to do some sort of giveaway, and that'll be really cool. If you like the content, please give the video a like. I'd love feedback or discussion. Drop a comment in the section. With that out of the way, let's get stuck in. I'm going to kick off with a bit of the lore about Focus and Fury. And what are they? Focus is the presence of a warcaster on a battlefield. It's the literal mental exertion of a warcaster over the round or turn of a game. If you imagine a player turn in a sense of a battle might be 10, 20 seconds, the focus you allocate and spend on your warcaster it's actually representing the mental focus it gives to any given action during a turn. It might cast a spell. That's going to give it a certain amount of mental focus to take to cast that spell. You might allocate that focus to a Warjack, and then that focus might be spent to make attacks. This is where it gets really cool. Your Warjacks come equipped with a Cortex system. A Cortex system is something unique to the Iron Kingdoms and Warmachine. That allows your warcaster, to enter the mind of your warjack and control it. Not physically, but through the cortex system, it can actually enter the mind of the warjack and take actions as if it was the warjack. And this is actually the reason why warjacks are normally made in a humanoid form, two legs, two arms. That's because the cortex system, as we know it in Imaron and the Western Kingdoms, only works in that human form. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, Cricks used to produce some crab-like warjacks, and their current light warjacks aren't humanoid at all. They have dark magic. Again, that's a bit of a dark magic, that's dark secret. The Cortex, in terms of technology, hasn't progressed all that much in the whole time we played the game. Signar have recently been able to protect their Cortex against electrical damage, but apart from that, a striker from the lore when we started playing and a striker now, it's pretty similar. The smartest cortex gives the intelligence of a very smart dog, and very basic cortexes are going to be used for things like worker jacks, very basic, simple-minded things. Now, through that cortex, your warcaster can enter your warjack and control it. When you allocate focus to a warjack, what you're saying is that your warcaster, it can be a certain amount of time, say 10 seconds, 5 seconds, however much time in that warjack through the cortex system to act as it is the warjack, do some damage. Fury, on the other hand, is the resource in which you're going to use if you're a previously you would be a Horde faction. Now it's all under one umbrella of Warmachine, and you simply use Focus or Fury. Fury is the work of a Warlock, not a Warcaster, and they are going to be controlling War Beasts, and they're going to force them to do things similar to how you spend Focus to charge or run or make attacks. Forcing War Beast and spending Fury on them makes them pretty angry. It's that primal raw anger of a War Beast in which your Warlock is going to harness that as a resource. It's going to use that to cast spells, make attack itself. The raw anger that you're generating through forcing these War Beasts to smash up those Warjacks, that is the resource Fury. Very different in the sense that a War Machine Warcaster, it's the mental presence of him that which you're spending, and on a Warlock, you're spending that raw primal anger you're generating through your War Beasts. That's a bit about the lore. So in the game, when you're allocating focus or you're riling up that War Beast, you maybe understand what it actually means. Let's speak about mechanically. What's the difference between the two? Now, we previously went through the maintenance and the control phase. We're going to go through that briefly again, just to understand how mechanically they're different. In a maintenance phase, the same thing happens if you're using focus or fury. If you have more focus or fury than you have your arcana stat, for example, if you're arcana 6 and you've got 9 focus on you at the start of the turn through some in-game mechanics, you're going to go back down to 6 in the first thing in the maintenance phase. Then we do other things in the maintenance phase which don't relate to focus. Then we move to the control phase. In the control phase, we're going to focus on focus first. The first thing we're going to do, if you've got less focus than your Arcana stat, so for example, I start the turn with 2 focus on Alistair Arcane, I'm going to replenish that back up to 6 because my Arcana stat is 6. After I've done that, Warjacks that are in my control range, which is a stat on the card we've previously gone through, they are going to power up. They're going to get one focus for free because they start in your warcaster sort of mental zone of exertion. Once your Warjacks are power up, we'll then have the opportunity to allocate focus to them. What we're saying by doing that is your warcaster is going to use some of its mental presence for these next 20 seconds, 10 seconds, and it's going to act as if it's in that Warjack, control it, smash some things up. And then lastly, if we're a focus, we are going to upkeep any spells we have on any models at the normal rate of 1 focus per upkeep. Now, say with Fury, the maintenance phase starts the same. We're going to remove Fury points that are in excess of our Arcana stat. Then we have some other things in the maintenance phase, which aren't related to the Fury stat. And then we're going to jump to the control phase. Now, if you're a Fury leader model and you're a Warlock, what you're going to do is you're going to leech Fury off of them more beasts. You just made them really angry, made lots of attacks. You're going to leech that anger, and you're going to turn it into a resource called Fury. That Fury on your Warlock is then you're going to use that during the turn to cast spells, etc. If a War Beast is dead, you get 1 Fury point for free per dead War Beast. Then the next thing we do if you're a Fury faction is we make threshold checks. When we make all those War Beasts angry, if we can't take all of that Fury off them, we may have a problem. They may start smacking our own things. What I've done, there is a browser application called Wartable. This allows you to play Warmachine online. I may do some sort of demo for this because it's a fantastic resource for anyone. But what I've done is I've set up a little scenario for us, and we're going to go through it in real time, how it might look. On the bottom here, I've got Alistair Kane with 3 strikers in his battle group. And in the top, I've got Bragan Ragemonger, who has got 3 Deepborns in his battle group. We're going to tick these up. Alistair Kane has Arcana stat of 6, and Bragan Ragemonger has Arcana stat of 6. We're going to use these big counters. They're going to represent the focus or fury on the representative models. I'm going to start with Alistair Kane. So we're going to say this is turn 1. You start the game with your representative stat of Arcana in focus or fury. So Kane is Arcana 6. So we are going to start the game with 6 focus. A very great tool Wartable has is you can make these auras. And what we're going to say here is this 12-inch aura is going to represent Alistair's control range. His range at which he can mentally exert himself over his Warjacks. Now, in the maintenance phase, we would remove excess focus that is above my Arcana. For any reason, if I started the turn with 8 focus on my Warcaster, who had an Arcana stat of 6, we would reduce that down to 6. Then in the maintenance phase, we're going to resolve continuous effects, and then we're going to resolve other effects. We've done that, we're going to jump to the control phase. Now, in the control phase, if for any reason, say this is my turn 2 now, and in my last turn I cast some spells, and Alistair Kane is going to start the turn on 1 focus, I now replenish my focus. That goes back up to 6. Now, every Warjack in my control range, which is the white circle, is going to power up for being in the presence of Alistair Kane. So we are going to give all these lovely chaps, all these strikers, 1 focus for starting the control phase in Alistair Kane's control range. Now, say this turn I want to go to make an attack with my strikers. I'd like to charge. I'd like to boost some hit and damage rolls. I want to allocate focus to that Warjack. So the next step in the control phase for a focus faction after powering up is to allocate. So I'm going to say take 2 off of Kane. I would give 2 to my striker. And say I also think this striker may want to charge and make an attack. I would take 1 off Kane and allocate it to that striker. Excellent. I've allocated focus. Now the next step for a focus faction is going to be to upkeep any spells. If I had any spells to upkeep at the cost of 1 focus per spell, I could upkeep them. And that is going to be the control phase for a focus faction. If we jump to a fury faction, up here we've got Bragan Ragemonger riding a shark. Very cool. Love him. And we're going to say this is turn 1. I start with my fury stat of focus. Of fury, apologies. Start with my Arcana stat worth of fury because I'm a warlock model. Excellent. And then say on my turn 1, Bragan's going to cast some spells. He's going to make some attacks. Great. He's going to go down to 1 Fury. He's going to spend that. These Dire Trolls, I'm going to say I spent 2 Fury on him. I ran and maybe I riled him once. Same with this guy. Say I run this guy. Excellent. We go to my maintenance phase for turn 2. I've not got more Fury than I have my Arcana stat. That's no problem. I resolve continuous effects. I do other effects. Done that. Excellent. We're going to go to control phase. Control phase, I now have the opportunity to leech my Fury off of my War Beast. Again, they have to be in the control range. They have to be in the sort of area of the table where the Warlock can mentally exert its control on these War Beasts. This big white circle is going to represent that. So, in my control phase, first thing I do as a Warlock, I'm going to leech the Fury off of these War Beasts. In this case, lucky for me, I've got 1 Fury on Bragan Rangemonger. His Arcana stat is 6. Means I could leech a total of 5 Fury off my War Beast in any combination. Great, so I can take 2 off this guy, which is now 4. 1 off this guy, which is now 5. That brings me to 6. That is my Arcana stat. Fantastic. Now you might be thinking, how do I know how much Fury I can spend on a War Beast? Well, the War Beasts have a stat called Fury. That is the amount of Fury you can spend on a War Beast in 1 turn. So a Deepborn Dire Troll could spend 4 Fury, be forced 4 times in 1 turn. A Warjack can only have 3 points allocated to it at any time. Say I have a very big turn. My turn 3, I want to commit very heavily. I'm going to leave Bragan on 0 Fury, and these Dire Trolls are really going to go make lots of attacks, boost lots of dice rolls, and say I spend 4 Fury on one, 4 Fury on another, and 3 Fury on the last one. We do my turn. It comes back to me. My Warlock not been killed. Great, I've not lost the game. But now I've got to try and leech that Fury off of these War Beasts. Now, my Arcana stat is 6. I can't leech more Fury than my Arcana stat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 off this guy and leech that onto Bragan. He goes up to 4. I'm going to take 2 off this guy, put this onto Bragan. He's now going to go up to 6. But you can see I've reached my Fury stat worth of Arcana. I can't leech anymore. So what happens now? I've got a lot of anger, a lot of raw primal fury left on my Dire Trolls, and I can't leech it off him. Well, now we've got to do some threshold checks. What we do is we roll 2 dice. I'm going to go and roll this guy's first. I'm going to roll 2 dice. In the top, I get a 6 plus 5, which is a 11. I add the amount of fury left on my model, which is 1. So that would be a 12 in total. I've got to compare that to the threshold of the War Beast. This THR is the threshold value of the War Beast. You'll see the threshold value is 7. So what that means is I've got to roll a 7 or below with the 2 dice I roll, adding the amount of fury. So the more fury I've got left on my War Beast, the higher I'm going to roll, naturally. And the lower chance I have of passing a threshold check. So the more that fury, more of that anger that's left on that War Beast, the higher chance is it's not going to be very happy about it. When you fail a threshold check, the War Beast frenzies. It's going to charge the nearest model, friend or foe, and it's going to do an attack. Then that model won't activate in your turn. It also won't contest. A frenzied War Beast doesn't contest zones, and you remove all the fury off of it. So that's obviously not very good. You're losing out on the activation of potentially an expensive model. It might hit a really key model in your own army, and that's no longer going to contest any objectives, which is not good because scenario play is key in Warmachine. That should sum up the difference between a focus and a fury. I've got a sort of list that I've put together in my mind, which I think covers the key differences between focus and fury. So first of all, focus is generated from your Warcaster. Your Warcaster is the point where your focus is going to come from. That's the mental presence it has over the battle turn to cast spells, or go into a Warjack via the Cortex system and act as if it was in it. You're spending the mental focus of a Warjack over the battle turn to see what it's going to do. It might cast a spell, it might enter a Warjack, but that's physically where mentally it's going to be for that turn. Fury is generated from your war beast. Your war beast generate this fury. It's the raw primal anger of a beast, and your warlock's going to force them to do it and hope that you can take that back. In the case of focus, that focus you generate from your warcaster, you're going to allocate to your warjacks. In case of fury, you're going to leech that fury which you've generated from your war beast back to your warlock. In terms of focus for fury, focus is limited by your arcana stat of your warcaster. Alistair Kane has 6 focus. If I take 4 warjacks with him and they all start in his control range, they're going to power up once each, so that's 4 focus. Then the maximum I can spend that turn is that 4 plus the 6 focus Alistair Kane has. If I take 5 war beasts that are fury stat of 4, I could spend 20 fury in one turn. So the cap of spending fury is a lot higher really than I can spend on focus. However, if I spend 20 fury, the chances that I can take all that 20 fury back and leech it back to my warlock, there isn't any chance. Most warlocks are arcana 6 to 8, so I could take a maximum of 8 fury. And then the other 12, I'm going to have a lot of angry war beasts left, frenzying, not contesting zones, and hitting my own stuff. So fury is a risk management, a resource management of taking it from generating it from your war beast and taking it from them. Whereas focus, you're generating it from your warcaster, allocating it to warjacks. With focus, obviously you can't lose that resource. As your warjacks perish in battle, you're not losing the opportunity to generate focus because your warcaster generates that for you. As a warlock who controls war beasts, each war beast you lose is a resource loss. If I have 5 war beasts, which are fury 4 each time I lose a war beast, I lose 4 potential fury to generate each turn. Lastly, what you can do with focus, for each focus left on a warcaster, you can spend 1 focus to do some sort of arcane magic. And when you take some damage, you can create a small shield around you, a small energy shield. You can negate 5 damage from a damage roll, 1 roll. You can't spend more than 1 focus on a roll. So if you take 10, you can't spend 2 focus to make 0. You can spend 1 focus to take 5 rather than 10. Whereas a war beast or a warlock can spend 1 fury to transfer 1 damage roll to a war beast in its control range. That war beast can't be maximized on fury. So if you're fury 3 as a war beast and you've got 3 fury on it, you can't transfer to that war beast. But you can't transfer a whole damage roll rather than stopping 5 damage. So against a focus user, 1 very big hit is more effective because if I do 20 damage to a warcaster, you can reduce that to 15, but that's the maximum you can reduce it to. If I do 20 damage to a warlock, he could transfer all 20 to a war beast. And that, I hope that sums up for you the main differences between focus and fury. I like to think of it as one, you've got a warcaster who is like your battery. He generates your resources. You give that resource to your warjacks. In fury, your war beast, your battery. They generate your fury, and then your warlock is going to use that energy, use that fury as a raw resource to do their actions. I hope that's clarified it for you. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you in another one very soon.